Most business owners don't realize this. They didn't just build a business, they built a prison. For years, I was one of them, working 60, 80 hours a week, exhausted, stuck in the operations, constantly putting out fires. Yes, I was making money, but no freedom, no time, and no space to actually lead. And that's exactly why I created the Freedom Business Liberation System. The Freedom Business Liberation System is the exact step-by-step framework I use to build multiple multi-million-dollar companies and step out of the day-to-day operations in every single one of them. It's a proven path that takes you from being the bottleneck to becoming a strategic, empowered leader with a business that runs without you. It's built on these 7 pillars. Welcome back. In our last video, we covered the first E, establish your leadership identity. You made the shift from operator to strategic leader. You learned decision-making frameworks and started developing emotional discipline. Today, we're moving to E, empower your team and culture, which is the second E in freedom, which builds directly on your leadership elevation. Here's the thing. You can be an incredible leader, but if your team isn't capable or aligned with your values, you're still going to be stuck. You can't delegate to people who aren't empowered. You cannot trust your team that doesn't share your standards. This video is about building a team that carries your vision forward and creating a culture that attracts and keeps A players. By the end of this video, you'll know how to hire for culture fit. You'll identify future leaders within your team, and you'll create feedback systems that evaluate performance and turn your values from wall posters into daily behaviors. So let's get started. Here's what I see all the time. Business owners with employees who show up. They do the minimum, they collect a paycheck, and then they go home. The owner is always frustrated because nobody cares as much as I do. And you know what? They're right. Their team doesn't care. But here's the question nobody wants to answer. Why should they care? If you hire based on who was available instead of who fits your culture, if you never clearly define what your values actually look like in action, if you don't develop people or give them increasing responsibility, why would they care? You create a transactional relationship. They trade time for money. That's not a team. That's a workforce. Real empowerment means building a team of people who think and act like owners. Even though they don't own the business, it means creating a culture so strong that mediocre performers either they'll level up or they'll self-select out. It means developing leaders who carry your vision forward without you being in every room. Without this, all the systems from video 2 and all the leadership from video 3 will fall flat because you're trying to lead people who aren't empowered to execute. That all changes today. Let me tell you about hiring for culture. Most business owners hire for skills and experience, then wonder why people don't work out. Skills you can train. Character and values, those are much harder to change. Hire for culture first and then skills second. Here's what culture fit hiring looks like. Before you post a job, get crystal clear on what your company values actually are. Not the generic ones that everyone claims. Integrity, hard work, excellence. I mean the real ones. Do you value initiative or following the process? Speed or precision? Individual performance or team collaboration? You can't screen for culture if you don't know what your culture is. Then, during the interviews, ask behavior-based questions that reveal alignment and values. Instead of, do you have integrity, which everyone says yes, ask, tell me about a time that you had to choose between meeting a deadline and doing something the right way. What did you do and why? Their answers reveals their values. Here's why this matters. Skills creates capability, but culture creates sustainability. A players who don't fit your culture will either leave or become culture killers. High performers who poison your team environment. B players who embody your values will grow into A players, and they will become culture carriers. I'd rather have a culture carrier I need to train than a skill expert who doesn't share my standards. Now, identifying leadership potential within your existing team. Not everyone wants to lead, and that's okay. I respect that. But for those who do, look for these 3 things. Initiative. Do they solve problems without being asked? Influence. Do others naturally follow them? And a growth mindset. Do they want to develop themselves? Those are future leaders. Once you identify them, invest in them. Give them increasing responsibility. Have regular one-on-one meetings focused on their development, not just task management. Create a pipeline that consistently prepares your best people for the next level. This builds leadership depth. Multiple people who can step up, not just one person who becomes a single point of failure. Think back to establish, video 3. You learn to lead. Now empower. You're developing others to lead. That's how you multiply your impact. Let me tell you about learning this lesson through pain. In the early days, I hired quickly to fill seats. We were growing. I needed bodies. And all I thought, I can train anyone. That was very naive. I hired a guy, let's call him Mike, for operations. On paper, Mike was perfect. 10 years of experience, great references, knew the industry, skills, A+. But within 3 months, Mike was a cancer to our team. He complained constantly. He undermined my decisions. He told team members, the boss doesn't know what he's doing. He created an us versus them culture. You know what? I kept him anyways because we need his expertise. Big mistake. 3 of my best people quit within 6 months. Not because of the workload or pay, because of Mike. They said, if that's who you're okay with having here, this isn't the culture I thought it was. I was keeping one toxic A player at the expense of losing multiple culture-aligned performers. When I finally let Mike go, the relief was immediate. The team could breathe. Energy came back. Performance actually improved. Even though we had lost a technical expert, that taught me skills without culture fit are net negative, not a positive. From that point on, I changed my hiring. Culture fit became a non-negotiable. I'd rather have someone less experienced who embodied our values than a seasoned expert who didn't. And you know what? We never had a toxic dynamic again. People started saying, I love working here. Everyone eventually cares. That's what happens when you hire and empower for culture. Now we have team members who have been with us 10 plus years. They don't stay for the paycheck. They stay because they're empowered. They are aligned with the values and they're growing into leaders themselves. That's the power of empowerment. Now let's talk about performance feedback and values integration. These are the mechanisms that turn your culture from theory into reality. First, feedback systems. Most companies do annual reviews, which are entirely useless. Once a year, you sit down and tell someone everything that they've done wrong over the 12 months. That's not development, that's punishment with delay. Honest feedback is frequent, specific, and developmental. Here's the framework. Weekly check-ins for quick pulse. How's everything going? Any blockers? Monthly one-on-ones for deeper development. Let's talk about your growth, not just tasks. And quarterly reviews for formal assessments. In these conversations, focus on 3 things. What's working, what needs to improve, and what support do they actually need from you. The key, feedback isn't just criticism, it's a loop. Here's what I'm seeing. What's your perspective? How can we improve this together? That's true development. It makes people better over time, which is the whole point of empowerment. Now, values integration. Your values are worthless if they're just words on the wall. They need to show up in how you make decisions, how you handle conflict, how you reward and recognize people, and how you exit people who violate them. Here's how to make values real. For each of your core values, define what it looks like. Behaviorally, let's say one of your values is ownership. Okay, what does ownership actually look like? We take responsibility for mistakes instead of blaming others. We solve problems instead of wanting to be told. We finish what we start. That's specific. People can understand and demonstrate that. Then reinforce it consistently. When someone embodies a value, recognize it publicly. Sarah demonstrated real ownership this week when she caught an error. She took responsibility and she fixed it before it impacted the client. That's what our culture is all about. When somebody violates a value, address it directly. Mike, when you blamed your team for missing the deadline instead of owning your part, that's not aligned with our values. We need that to be changed. That shares your standards and can execute those systems without you micromanaging. This connects to everything. In restructure, video 2, you built systems. In establish, video 3, you became a strategic leader. Now, in empower, you're building a team that shares your standards and can execute those systems without you micromanaging. Your culture becomes your competitive advantage because people want to work for your company that actually stands for something. Start here. Pick one value. Define what it looks like behaviorally. This week, catch somebody demonstrating it and publicly recognize them. Watch what happens. Great work today. You just learned the 4th pillar of freedom. Empower your team and culture. You now understand how to hire for culture fit, identify and develop future leaders, create feedback systems that evaluate performance, and integrate your values into daily behaviors. That's the second E. You're over halfway through the foundation. This is where your business starts to multiply beyond just you. You're building a team that can carry your vision forward. You are creating a culture that attracts and keeps the right people. That's the foundation for sustainable growth. Keep going. Next up is D, delegate effectively and trust. This is where we'll cover why most delegation fails, how to build trust without micromanaging, and how to overcome psychological barriers that keep you from delegating. This builds directly on empower. You've developed the team, now you're actually going to get the work off your plate. See you there. Congratulations. You've completed the Freedom Business Liberation System. At this point, you have all the tools. You have the framework. You have what you need to implement the freedom system on your own. But here's the real question you need to ask yourself. Do you have the accountability to actually work through every single pillar and execute the practical applications inside your business, even when you get busy or distracted or you hit resistance? I want to give you one option that will accelerate everything you just learned. If you want the accountability and real-time support, there's an additional resource that includes 8 weeks of Zoom coaching with me. We'll go pillar by pillar, week by week, focused on the practical implementation. What to do first, what to do next, and you can bring all your questions, your real situations, and your real roadblocks. I'll walk you through it so you're not guessing and you don't stall out. If you're ready to move faster with clarity and accountability, click the link below and I'll see you on the first call.